We will, oh, come on now, that's just not good. Oh, no wonder it's over here. I was gonna say, I really like noise when I bang the gavel. Okay, we will open the meeting for the Truckee Meadows Fire Board for December 18th, 2018. And we will ask the late Paul Liparelli to please lead us in the salute. That's what you get for coming in late. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Liparelli. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Marcia Burke-Bigler, Chair.
Here.
Kitty Jung, Vice Chair.
Present.
Bob Lucy. Von Hartung is absent. Jeannie Herman.
Here.
Fire Chief Charles Moore.
Here.
Assistant District Attorney Paul Liparelli.
Here.
I'm Nancy Parent, County Clerk. You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So we will move on to public comment. Chief.
Public comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Board of Fire Commissioners' agenda. The district will also hear public comment during individual action items, with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the Board of Fire Commissioners as a whole.
Okay, I see nobody signed in. Do you have anybody, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we will close public comment and move on to Commissioners' Fire Chief's announcements. Chief.
I have 3 announcements, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The local 2487 let me know that they will not be in attendance today, so we will not need item 7. And with your permission, I'd like to take a couple of items out of order.
Certainly.
Following end of consent items, I'd like to take 9 and 10 first, so my staff can get back to prepare for a meeting that they have.
All right, no problem. Commissioners, anybody have comments? Vice Chair Jung.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and Mr. Fire Chief and your public information officer. Did you adopt all 7 of those, 6 of those Labrador puppies that TMFPD saved?
Can I comment? We referred them to Washoe County Animal Services, and I've had a number of inquiries about adoption. I'll follow up, though.
No, I said you were going to take all 6 home. 6
My
Labrador
wife-
puppies.
I'm sorry, the boss of the Moore family vetoed that idea.
You're a very wise man. Happy wife, happy life. So congratulations to fire, and thank you, Mr. Public Information Officer, for getting that out. You know, that news made it nationally. So that's, it's just adorable. It's perfect time of the season, and hats off to all of the firefighters, and heartfelt thank you and appreciation for times that doesn't work out like that. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we will close number 4 and move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Chief, the consent items?
Item 5 are consent items.
Okay, Commissioners, anybody have any questions or any changes on the consent agenda? Okay, I'm looking for a motion. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Please affirm your vote up above.
Oh, we should do
Oh, cast your vote on the screen, and then affirm your vote up above. Donations, okay. The motion carries 4-0 with all commissioners voting except for Commissioner Hartung, who is absent. Okay, so we do have some donations. Do you want to do those before we?
They were just voted on in the consent.
Okay.
So I just want to publicly thank, on item 5B, the donation of $100 from Washoe County resident Michael L. Smith in support of the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District Station 33A shift. We greatly appreciate you and all your help and your appreciation for the first responders. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Absolutely. Okay, Chief, I think you wanted to go to 9 and 10?
I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 9 is recommendation to authorize Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District to pay workers' comp, heart, and lung claims. Invoice dated October 22nd, 2018 from the City of Reno in the amount not to exceed $40,343.75. per the Reno TM interlocal agreement, subject to review by our independent actuary. If there's any questions, Cindy Vance can answer them for you.
Commissioners, any questions about this? This is pretty standard. All right.
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying, oh, do we have any public comment? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please cast your vote on the screen and then affirm your vote above. Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Hartung absent. Thanks, Chief. 10.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 10 is a recommendation to accept Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District's audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018 as presented. Approve the reappropriation of $1,818,267.53 for the fiscal year 2019 budget, consisting of $36,673.75 in the general fund and $1,781,593.78 in the capital projects fund for purchase order encumbrances committed in fiscal year 2018, and authorize the district to proceed with the distribution of the financial statements for public record as required by law. Mr. Dan Carter from Mine Bailey is here if the board has questions, as well as Cindy Vance can also give you an overview of our financials.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions? It looks pretty straightforward. I didn't see anything that concerned me. Vice Chair Jung, did you have something?
Just, there were no significant findings or corrections, correct? This is very much a global audit, not a down to the meat and potatoes like we do with our internal auditor, but you had nothing significant with your stamp on it. Thank you. I move to approve, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, please cast your vote on the screen and then affirm your vote up above. Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Hartung absent. Thank you, Chief. I guess that puts us back to item number 6.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Item 6 is a presentation of winter weather forecast by Reno NWS meteorologist Chris Smallcombe for discussion only.
Good morning. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Clicker here, super duper. Okay. And there's a presentation. So, good morning. Again, Chris Malcolm with the National Weather Service Forecast Office here in Reno. And I was invited to talk about what we expect for this winter. Will it be tremendously big and tremendously wet? You might recognize that phrase from somewhere a few months ago. As soon as I heard it, I'm like, I'm going to use that. And thus far, I think, if you can remember back to 2 weeks ago today, remember that snow we got, that little bit of snow and the chaos that ensued on the roadways? It doesn't take a tremendously big and tremendously wet winter to cause mayhem in our region. And I think that was a prime example of the half an inch of snow, roads dipping below freezing in temperature, and boom, all of a sudden it's a mess. And unfortunately, those kind of storms are actually less predictable than the bigger ones. So we do still struggle with those, being able to provide some kind of lead time to agencies like NDOT and to get ready for those. So what I'm going to do, though, is take a step back and look at what we have had so far in terms of our winter season and what we do expect for this coming season. And then with any time I have remaining, I do want to highlight a couple new weather alerts that we've got that can help the community prepare for perhaps these little half-inch, 1-inch snows that can cause a lot of problems. So moving along, how is the winter snowpack starting off? So this is a chart. It's a time series from October 1st through April 1st. And what you're looking at here are the snowpack numbers in aggregate, basically for the Truckee, Tahoe, down towards Sonora Pass region of the Sierra. And that black line is where we are this year. That green line, the lime green line, is average. And so we're right about where we should be for this time of year. And in fact, as of a couple of weeks ago, after the storms and around Thanksgiving and shortly after, we were actually ahead of the game in terms of snowpack up in the mountains. But since the storms we've had since then have been fairly weak, we've kind of flatlined, if you will, and we're right about average for the snowpack. And you can see the extremes. You can see how bad it can be, the red line at the bottom, and you can see how really good it can be, how generous the snow can be with that blue line at the top, looking back at over 100 years of data. Now, how does this compare to some of our recent winters? So comparing it to the water, these are water years, so 2017-18 and 2016-17. So this is comparing it to a year ago, so 2017-18. That's that new line that came up. I'll kind of toggle back and forth there so you can kind of see. We're ahead of that. So that's pretty solid. And then how do we compare to the big winter, 2016-17, the one that never seemed to shut off? And we're about right at that point. We're in a similar spot. Now, this does not imply like we're going to see another 2016-17 winter, but it just kind of puts it in context. So actually, we're doing okay in terms of water supply, snowpack, for the coming year. Now, one thing about our climate here in California and Nevada, and any of you who've seen my presentations before knows this, we have widely variable temperatures are consistently warmer the last 6 years, but the precipitation is widely variable from year to year to year. We've had really big winters and we've had really, really dry winters. That is actually fairly normal for our climate in California and Nevada and the Sierra. And so that's nothing too unusual. But if you've been here over the last 6 years, you've seen as bad as it can be, and you've seen about as generous and as wet as it can be. So odds are this coming winter will be somewhere in between. That's a really profound statement, but hey, it's what we can do. So this is kind of an interesting thing. And are falls getting drier? In other words, is winter getting slower to start? And is spring getting wetter? In other words, is winter hanging on longer than it used to? And this is something just from my perception. I'm out and about. I do a lot of endurance runs, and so I'm always sort of waiting for the weather to be dry or the snow to melt finally. And so it's been something like, gosh, it seems like springs have been wetter and wetter recently. So what you're going to look at here is, this is for Western Nevada, and we're looking over decades of data. Is this first graph shows you the falls. The precipitation, there really isn't a big trend in fall precipitation. It's still widely variable. We've had super, super wet falls and super dry falls in the last several decades. So there really isn't a big trend. It's interesting though, look at spring. There is a trend there. That springs in general have become wetter in Western Nevada. And it's just the type of storms we're getting in the region that they typically are warmer. They produce more rain and less snow. We're getting more of those in the spring. Now that has a huge impact for fire, because if we get more of those, that causes the grass crop to be quite prolific. It's not cold enough, but it's rainy and it allows the grasses to grow. So that can therefore lead to bigger fire seasons. So that's one of the big things we look for next year, for each summer, is how is the spring doing in terms of precipitation? If it's really wet, that usually leads itself to a fairly busy fire season, especially in the grassy fuels that we have in abundance around Washoe County and Western Nevada. The winter precipitation is more of an impact in the Sierra, in the mountains. If it's a particularly dry winter, that can lead to more timber fires, like up in the Tahoe Basin and such. But if it's a really, really snowy season, that can kind of delay that. So that's something we do look for. And so that spring trend is kind of interesting, that maybe as a preparedness action, we need to think about that we may see more of those larger grass fires in the future if that trend holds. Now, looking at this specific winter, El Nino is everyone's favorite topic. And just as a refresher there, El Nino on the right is where the tropical Pacific is unusually warm. La Nina is where it is unusually cool. And this has global weather ramifications. It basically steers the jet stream, the storm track, into certain parts of the world. And what we're looking at for this winter is what we call a weak El Nino, where that body of water in the tropical Pacific Ocean is just a little bit above normal in terms of water temperature, but that still has influences on where the storm track goes. Unfortunately for our region, these are the weak El Ninos in the past, dating back into the 60s and even the 50s. There's a wide variety of outcomes. Those dark greens are wet, those dark browns are dry, so it's kind of everywhere in between. In fact, 76, 77, if you look at just 1 year at a time, was the worst drought California and Nevada has seen in many, many decades, but it was just 1 year. But then you see 77, 78 was super, super wet. So knowing that it's a weak El Nino, unfortunately, doesn't tell us anything about what kind of winter we're going to bring. And that statistics bear that out. You guys have seen this plot before. It's a scatter plot showing El Nino, La Nina versus how much precip we get in the wintertime, and it's anything goes. So unfortunately, that is my official winter outlook, is I don't know. That's what you guys brought me down here to say, I don't know. And so that's sort of the way we're going to roll as we go through the season. I mean, so far we're doing okay in terms of precipitation and snowpack, but really anything could happen over the coming months. I will say, and I'm probably giving this about a 1 in 5 chance. There's some hope for some snow on Christmas Eve. I'm not a big fan of the snow down here. I have no interest in it, but on Christmas Eve, I will allow it. My generosity knows no bounds, so I will allow it on Christmas Eve. So not a done deal, but some of the simulations are showing a storm coming in, and on the backside of it, when the cold air comes in, we could see a little bit of snow. Now, I do want to kind of go on a couple scenarios that I think are important is, if we do end up with a very dry period, even after the precipitation we've had, and we do get those very strong winds and low humidities, we could still end up with another off-season fire in the region. The fuels, the grassy vegetation, a lot of it's still there. I run on Peavine, there's still plenty of that fuel still there. So we do need to keep mindful of that, and we will be sure to brief our partners in the fire services if we expect one of those scenarios to come up midwinter. Unfortunately, we've had some examples in the last 5 to 10 years of this kind of off-season wildfires happening. In fact, the concept of a fire season is perhaps becoming a little antiquated. We see fires almost year-round at this point. The other thing is flooding. We've seen a lot of burn scars, and that map there is just a 30,000-foot view of all the burn scars in the region. This was taken before the big Camp Fire east of Chico, but more importantly, around our region, we do have a number of burn scars. The Perry Fire is an example up toward Pyramid Lake, and so all of that is very prone to flooding. And this is an example from Topaz Lake of the debris flow they saw earlier this year. And so if we do get heavy precipitation or prolonged precipitation with an atmospheric river, we can see those flooding scenarios. So we are keeping an eye on that Perry Fire burn area. If they do see heavy enough rains, communities out there could definitely be affected by this kind of debris flow and flooding, and along with roadways as well. So something I think it's important to bring up. So I'll wrap up my presentation here in the last minute or so talking about the least predictable snow hazards, and we just had an example of that, the classic inside slider. This is if you hear that term inside slider, that's your 1/2 inch to 1 inch or 2 inches of snow that causes mass chaos around our area because there's just as much traffic on the roads, people don't take it seriously. And so we had an example of that. It wasn't a textbook slider, but it was close enough. We had examples where, and this is from Wisconsin, but NDOT says the same thing. It's those trace to 2-inch snowfalls that cause the most amount of accidents. Unfortunately, they're also the least predictable. Might only be able to give you a day or two notice on these. Here's some examples. These are screen captures from 2 weeks ago, Tuesday, of Google Maps. I did this one. I tried an estimate from South Reno up to the North Valleys, and what would typically be about a 20-minute drive, it was estimating at 1 hour and 38 minutes. That was just a 1/2 inch of snow then the roads went below freezing as the sun went down. So that is the scenario that actually worries me more, that freaks me out more than any 6 to 12-inch snow event, because those latter events, they just shut everything down, and we're all happy just sitting around the fireplace and whatever. So to finish up here, I do want to highlight we are going to issue a new snow squall warning if we foresee one of these really narrow, intense bands of snow move into the area that could cause issues for the commute. So if you hear the term snow squall warning, think quick burst of heavy snow that's going to cause issues on the roadways. It goes out through EAS, goes out to the broadcasters, onto our webpage, just about any alerting mechanism you see out there. It will also eventually be on the cell phone alerts as well, but unfortunately not until after we're done with this winter season. Things take a little bit of time in the government, shocking but true. So that's all I've got. Thank you for your attention, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you again, Chris, and
Likewise.
always nice. And you know, it confirms, I think, our belief that when you live in Reno, even the weathermen don't really know for sure what's going to happen with the weather.
You bet. And I'll keep it real. When I've gone out on some runs and I thought, oh, I know it's going to be, no, and then I get caught. I'm like, okay, yeah. Here's the meteorologist. Yep.
Commissioners, any questions? Vice Chair John.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So the two keywords that we should be aware of is snow squall and inside slider.
Yep.
Everything else, if it's more than a 3-day prediction, we're just basically shaking a magic 8-ball. And didn't you say 3 last time you were here?
To some extent, you know, the bigger storms that come off the Pacific, those atmospheric rivers, you know, the ones that could lead to our flooding.
Yep.
Those we really talk some good details 4, 5, 6, 7 days out. It's the snow events, the tricky snow events that only produce a 1/2 inch, 1 inch of snow, the inside slider and the snow squall. Okay. Those we don't have a lot of predictive capability on. So we may know at best a day or so out on
Sure.
those. Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they cause the most problems.
Because
for most
nobody's
people.
notified, and also people think, it's a couple inches. I can drive as fast as I can and close my eyes and wish for the best.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
I personally, in those events, I feel safer with a good pair of trail shoes and running into work instead of driving.
I feel safer going over the pass when it is dumping because nobody's on the road and
Nobody's
everybody's
out.
going slow.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the other people you have to worry about.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, not me,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a good day. Chief, I believe we are back to your report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 8 is Fire Chief's report. The first item is green waste collection. We increased the amount of green waste that we collected. The first year was 1,000 cubic yards. We went all the way to 5,000 cubic yards this year, and we think it's going to continue to grow. Challenges for the future are going to be some heavy equipment needs, some land in order to stack all of this, and a little bit more help. I did want to mention and give a shout out to local Boy Scout Troop 7322 who helped us at Eastlake. Very, very helpful in helping senior citizens unload their trailers. So my thanks to the Boy Scout troops there. So with the end of the year, we'll be able to assess how much money the program cost. I think we're still under budget on that, but again, lots of thanks from citizens for the opportunity to dispose of their green waste and create defensible space. With the need for heavy equipment, I'll segue into bulldozer acquisition. Chief Gorgon and Captain Bunn are going to announce a new program that we found in order to acquire the heavy equipment at very low cost, but we found I don't want to steal their thunder, but we found a very nice bulldozer for a future bulldozer program for us, so I'll turn it over to Chief Gorgon and Captain Bunn.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just to give you kind of a quick update as we move forward with this program, and the next time I come up, I'll have nice pictures and the dozer ready for you guys to take a look at. But we acquired the dozer through the Federal Excess Personal Property Program through the Department of Defense. And they work with the forester in the state through the United States Department of Agriculture to give or lend equipment to the fire service. And so Captain Bunn was able to look through hundreds of pages of web pages of equipment and found us a 1996 Caterpillar with less than 900 hours on the engine, which is, it's like brand new. Even though it's from 96. It's a large, high-track D7, and we took possession of it. It got delivered last week, and we have it at the Caterpillar dealership here getting looked at. There's a few items that have to be fixed on it, but it's in running condition. Should be just a few dollars for us to bring it up. We don't own the piece of equipment. That piece of equipment is on loan to us. We have to put it in service here within the next year, and we'll have that. Hopefully, if things go well, we'll have a program up and running before the fire season. And of course, a large Caterpillar can be used for many things, but as we just heard from the National Weather Service, it can be used for flood mitigation, of course, fire suppression efforts, especially in this area. A bulldozer will do a tremendous amount of work versus what we can get out of one of our Type 3 brush rigs, or even a interagency hotshot crew. You can put down a lot of line, and which will help us suppress fires in the area. So with that, we will be coming back with pictures of the dozer once we get it all up and running and looking pretty. We'll come back to you. I don't know if you have any questions.
Madam Chair, if I can. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief Gorgon, on the, so fantastic on the acquisition of the bulldozer, and it absolutely is a wonderful piece of equipment that does serve a lot of benefit for us. Do we have a tractor trailer that would be able to mobilize that bulldozer and, because obviously that's a heavy piece of equipment that's
Yes.
to move around.
So we're in that process of right now of trying to acquisition a trailer that will be able to get it around the district, and also a tractor. We have a few options, but we're looking for the things that can come from this acquisition program. So it's a matter of almost this kind of waiting to see what pops up. There's new items that pop up every day. And so Captain Bunn is constantly going through the web pages to see if there's equipment out there that we can use. This will also roll into our fuels management program as the chief starts unveiling that in the future. We're hoping to be able to pick up some equipment for zero costs other than shipment to our area to help with our fuels reduction program.
Do some more preventative maintenance.
Yep.
And where will the dozer be housed at?
So right now, we're kind of in the works with that. I don't have a clear place that we're going to put it. Most likely, it's going to be probably in the northern part of the district, just for quick access into our northern district where we have more grasslands, more area where a heavy dozer would work. We're also looking for another lighter dozer for the south end of our district. That way we can quickly put them into action. Like I said, you can put out a much more line and to protect our constituents out there.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Couple of questions. When we do the green waste, Mr. Chief, do we collect addresses from people who are delivering the green waste?
We do not know. We don't take any information.
I was wondering if maybe we should do that, just to see where it's spread out in the county and in Sparks Fire and Reno Fire. Because I know we take all comers, which is great in terms of fuel reduction, but you were saying that you don't know if we went under budget. That might be a shared service that we either get credit for or we ask for reimbursement upon. Or they may want to create their own. I'm not sure how that would change, but if we've seen such an increase in people taking advantage of a very good program, I think we should share that service one way or the other and get, like I said, credit or reimbursement for said service. And also to maybe weed out some bad actors like landscape people, et cetera, who either put it there or they throw it in our public lands. So if we could look at that for the next cycle, I think that would be helpful, especially when we're going to the state to ask for different advantages when it comes to annexation, et cetera, because they always want to say, well, how much are each of you giving? Remember, a few years ago, it was testified at the legislature that it was like 1.5 million that we were using from them, and found out that wasn't true at all in the cooperative agreement. So just as a good defense, and also just to demonstrate what good works we do throughout the whole county and not just in pocket areas. And then I have a question about the Caterpillar. You already asked where it would be located, but from whom are we loaning this from, borrowing this from?
So it comes from through the Department of Defense to the United States.
Is this the surplus?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
surplus. So it's basically equipment that's still, it's through the Federal Reutilization Program.
Gotcha.
And so these programs, this particular program has been here since 1956. And so we're looking in to be able to get some equipment. The acquisition price for this is about $205,000. If you were to go buy a brand new one, you're talking about $500,000. So it's something that we can use. There's other equipment out there that we can use for our fuels reduction program as we move forward as an organization. Anything we can get for basically free works for us and will benefit the district.
And then where is it located today?
Today, we had it shipped to the Caterpillar dealer here in Reno.
Where'd it come from?
It came from Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
So there was a little haul bringing it across the country, but it'll be very good for us for initial attack fires in the summer, as we heard from, if we get a lot of rain in the
Year-round.
spring. Yep, it can be used for many different things within the district and in the county, so it'll be available for use.
Okay, thank you.
Great idea. Thank you, Vice Chair Jung. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Chief?
I'm also excited that we'll be able to acquire an excavator and other equipment that we'll need for the green waste program at no cost once we locate the equipment, because our little Bobcat is just simply overwhelmed with the volume of green waste that we get. Next is a fire prevention update from Chief Beaver.
Good morning, Chief. Good morning. Good to see you this morning.
It's nice to be seen, and it's nice seeing you also. This is something I've requested. You're going to be seeing me a lot more because I want to brief you on what's going on in prevention throughout our district. So I'm going to try to do this at every meeting and give you some statistics that you can take a look at. So I would like to start off, and it kind of catches on with Chief Gorgon, about Defensible Space Assessment Program that originally was a pilot program when I first came here. And as you well know, the biggest bang for our buck is being well prepared in our wildland to try to manage our fuels and try to improve the survivability of people's homes in the wildland area. So with that, we have what's a defensible space. Specifically for you, so you can get an idea of what we're doing for community outreach. So.
Hello, I'm Lisa Beaver, Deputy Fire Chief at Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. Today, we're going to be doing a defensible space makeover. Defensible space is the area working from your home to the wildland area, in this case, 50 feet from the home.
Wow.
So basically, I have to thank Palomino volunteers. They reached out and they found a community member that offered up her home that she needed some help. We pulled together, everyone was pulled together by them. We took the opportunity to go out, spend time with the property owner, walk the property with them, and was able to put the video together. The video is intended to give the community an understanding of really what defensible space is about. And the reason I'm saying that is that people feel that defensible space is about mowing down everything. It's about cutting down the trees, getting everything to dirt, and that's not the truth. So to get people engaged in what we do, we need them to really understand. Remember, transparency is trust. So we want to engage them. So with that being said, if I can get the overhead pulled up, the pilot program that I was talking about defensible space, this was a pilot program when I came on board. We've made it a real program, and what this does is it allows our community members throughout all of our communities to contact us and ask us to come out and walk their property with them and talk with them really about fire dynamics and how defensible space is going to help them. This is not a regulatory thing. This is about helping people, helping our community. So this kind of ties in with the video. The next one that we have that I also want to show you here is, in addition to this, we're actually creating a home safety survey program. Survey program, again, is also a volunteer program. This program actually addresses safety issues inside the home and also outside the home. So as you can see here, this gives you, I know it's kind of small, gives you a brief list of the items that we cover. So everything from your water heater, the installation, if it's a gas water heater, being 18 inches above the floor, about plugging in kitchen safety. You know, when you're in the kitchen, you have children, letting people know about kitchen safety, electrical safety. We try to address those big items. We took a look at the National Fire Protection Association and other safety publications that were out there to see what were the key issues they identified that actually caused injury to people in their home. So we wanted to address that. You can call and ask us to come out to do this safety survey with you. Also, we're making it available online that you can pull it off yourself and do your own safety survey. And then you can also send us an email and ask us some questions. So we want to remember, they're as much a part of our family as we are a part of theirs. And that's what this is about, is improving safety for them. The next item on the agenda is, or my speaking points, is I wanted to also get a briefing. Commissioner Herman, we met with the Verdi community about developing a fire adaptive community chapter. And I have to applaud them. They are moving forward in that. On November 30th, there was actually a community meeting in which they had submitted their application to become a fire adaptive community chapter. This is the beginning of being able to do this throughout our district, throughout all of our communities, and being a partner with them to help guide them through, like developing a community wildfire prevention program also. So they actually identified Anne Marie McCann as a chair and also John Giovanni as a vice chair. The group agreed to call the chapter as the Verdi Mogul chapter. They're currently working on identifying what the boundaries are of this chapter. It's very flexible. They can make it larger, they can make it smaller. But the three main priorities that they've addressed that they're going to be working towards, which we're going to be partnering and assisting them, is wildland fuels reduction, of course, defensible space management, and also the wildfire education for their area. Very positive thing, okay? A great model for how we can move forward in our other communities. The other things that we'll be looking at also is ingress and egress into the area, and maybe we can utilize our dozer to do some improvements there. So, the last thing on my item is the fire permit status, because I can imagine that, you know, developers are wanting to get their permits, and we got to support and improve development in our area. Right now, in our overall plan checks for our department, we have a backlog of 47 plans that are waiting for review. That kind of tells you what our workload is in the prevention, doing permitting. In addition to that, we have about 17 plans that are waiting on information to come back to us from our community. So overall, we basically have a backlog of 64 permits sitting in our queue at this point. In the future, in the next, I wasn't able to get all of the stacks together about how many permits that we've issued in a period of time, and we'll be providing that to you in the next meeting. So, we're also working at getting another permit program through Excella of ACTS. It's actually not a new program, but they're opening up a fire portion of it so that we can use that to try to improve our communication to the public. So,
Okay,
that's all I have for you.
thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Vice Chair Jung?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go in the order of which you presented. Are you doing any outreach or education for defensible space in urban areas, as we are seeing with the fire behavior year-round, that whole urban areas are burning down, Santa Rosa, Paradise? What are you doing to help them? Is it the same, because you mentioned wildland interface. People in urban areas don't have wildland interface. However, should they have 50 feet from their house? Should they have the junk junipers removed close to their house? Are we doing anything to outreach, or at least to encourage other jurisdictions to do that? Because I'm much more concerned, frankly, of the giant fires that burn whole cities down.
Yes, and I agree. So it's, you know, when you get into those urban areas, people feel, when you see concrete and asphalt and sidewalks, you feel safe. And I know our battalion chief, Heike, I've spent a lot of time with him. He's been here for a while, and he's talked to me about fires that we've had in the past, before I was here, where those urban areas had fires and we had loss of residences in those areas because we have that ember flight that can travel great distances, right? So I am meeting with some HOA areas that are in that urban area. And when I say that, it's a definition that where you don't fall under what would be the WUI code. There's a clear definition of that, okay? So if you're in a low hazard classification or in a, which is generally your urban areas, those are the areas that aren't really, let's be honest, there's no time spent on them, okay? Because they're figured that they're safe when there's that
don't figure
perception.
that.
Right. So I have been meeting with some of the HOAs in those areas and talking to them and educating them on what defensible space means, which is the most important space is 5 feet from your home. It's where all those leaves and everything builds up next to the home. And when you have an ember shower that travels some distance or it makes its way to that combustible dried vegetation against your home, that fire can actually get behind your outside sheeting and end up in your wall, and then you end up losing that home. So we are planning on doing more of that. Right now, it's trying to prioritize and reach people the best we can, both through technology and through being out there. So there is some partnering that we're doing. Both Chief Gorgon and I are actually brainstorming together to utilize all of our resources to be able to do community education, which includes some of the volunteer stations that we have.
So, Mr. Fire Chief, I would ask that you reach out to Sparks and Reno Fire and ask for an update of what they are doing for the urban areas that they represent for education, as we represent everybody in the cities, not just the urban or the wildland interface, and see what their education and presentation and best practices are now that we have seen how Santa Rosa and Paradise and other cities and subdivisions that we once thought were so fire safe are actually quite unfire safe. So can you reach out, maybe a letter, I'll write the letter, whatever you need. I think that the time has passed really to start educating people across the whole region, as a region, about these horrific fire dangers, and knowing your ingress and egress, and knowing where to go. Like in the campfire, there's only one way out and one way in, which had to be just horrible. So even just teaching each of us how to, you know, what they used to teach us in grade school, civil defense, you know, how to take care of yourself in your home and to know what to do. So I would like either them to come and report to us or give us somebody a letter, whatever it might be. Thank you. And then I have another question. You said you have a backlog of 64 permits for new buildings. What are we doing to alleviate said backlog? Are we hiring more staff? Because that backlog will come to all of us from different people saying this is ridiculous. So are we staffing up? Are we hiring temps? What are we doing for the evaluation of these backlogs, knowing that we are in a housing crisis situation?
So right now we have, as of October, we've hired 2 additional people. And those people are actually involved in doing, because keep in mind, even though we have permits, we also have inspections and other duties, as you know. So right now I have a staff of 3, and we're just making it. I'll be honest with you, and actually, if I really look at the overall community risk reduction program that we need to have in place, we're kind of behind. We're not making it. Okay.
So how can we help you make it?
So Chief and I are looking at the future for adding additional staff so that we can meet those programs, so that we can actually demonstrate that we have a good community risk reduction program, which includes permitting and doing all the community outreach and everything else. So the support that I can get from you is when we present that information to you of what we really need to provide.
During budget?
Services is that budget, yes.
Okay. And I mean, I don't want to tell you how to run your shop, but you might even look at temporary workers, which, trust me, I get it. There's a help wanted everywhere you go. So it's very hard to hire anybody right now because we are virtually at 100% employment. But let us know how we can help you advocate for yourself, because bottom line, we'll be the ones fielding the complaints that things are hung up. I know that from being the District Board of Health chair, that it's everybody's other favorite punching bag when we're going through the due process. But if you are that far behind, this is an emergency and we need to be addressing that. It also is going to help alleviate this lack of affordable housing crisis that we're in. So I don't need any more discussion. That's just the direction I want to give. And Mr. Chief, if we could meet and go over your budget one-on-one, just kind of where we can move things around. I know we're still in negotiations with labor, but this is critical. The prevention and I'm not saying hurry up your inspections and just rubber stamp it, but also making sure that we have safe buildings from a firefighter and prevention standpoint. So I'm happy to help lift that one. Thank you. Thank you. You're doing a great job. I like you as our spokesperson and as our code update professional.
Perfect.
It's great.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jung. One quick question about the permits and the backlog. What is the time frame that most developers are looking at to actually get those that are already in process?
To get the review, we're about 30 days.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, good, thank you.
you're very welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Chief?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A update on Station 37. We successfully closed. That's Hidden Valley. We successfully closed on the residential building home that the board authorized a couple months ago. So we're now hiring consultants, architect, land planner to develop the overall plan. We'll start with the rehabilitation of the residents, and once that's done, we'll move staff into that. We'll have the plan to raise the existing truck bay and remove the modular from the site. The biggest problem we'll have to overcome is where do we put the apparatus while we're building the new truck bay, and we think that we have access to some temporary buildings that will need approval. And it should really only be about a 3-month build for the apparatus bay. It's not significantly complicated in terms of construction. So it's moving along. We hope to break ground sometime in the summer.
Good.
Item 6 is rebranding of TMFPD. I spoke with the chair of strategic plan. I'm sorry, thank you. Strategic plan is set for a refresh on January 7th. We'll have a kickoff meeting. If any of the commissioners would like to attend, you'd be welcome to join us. We have a number of topics that we want to address going forward in the next 5 years, so this is our look forward. We have a good 7 topics that are at the top of the list, but if any of you would like to participate, certainly would love to have you there. We'll also be kicking off the budget discussions on January 7th as well. The meeting will be here somewhere in the county building.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed that. Finally, rebranding of TMFPD. I spoke with the chair about whether or not we should rebrand TMFPD. And since we've been Truckee Meadows Fire, of course, our jurisdiction is a lot more than just what Truckee Meadows was originally when it was formed back in the 70s. So the idea is to change our name to be more reflective of our geographical service area. And staff is thinking that we change our name to Washoe County Fire and Rescue or something like that. So we're looking at changing the name to be more representative of the entire region that we serve, particularly if we increase our northern border farther up towards Gerlach at some point. So with the board's permission, we'd like to bring back some ideas, some costs of rebranding. This would be probably a 2-year project, but we think it's time to change the name of our district into something that's more recognizable in terms of the area that we serve.
Good, thank you, Chief. Vice Chair Jung?
Thank you. I'd like to be involved in that conversation, Mr. Fire Chief. I have no problem with rebranding it from Truckee Meadows because really the largesse of what we do is pretty much out of the Truckee Meadows, if you want to get really geographically specific. And Washoe County is okay with me because it's underneath the Washoe County Board. I just get, and then we have Truckee Meadows flood protection. I mean, there's too many using of names. And so I'm a little okay with Washoe County, but it's just like the school district. How many complaints do we get about the school board and the school district because they're named Washoe County School District, of which we have no control over. So just something to bounce around in your head. Why are we reusing names over and over when there's lots of beautiful names out there? In this case, it might be a better fit, but I don't think the school district fits well with us because of the confusion for the average citizen who, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them if they weren't involved as intimately as we are the collective we that come to the meetings, they have no idea who to go to. So just keep that in mind while you're batting that around. And of course, make sure that you have your people who are on the boots on the ground in agreement with the name of it. But I think that that's probably time to move that out of that, and that history of that, where it came from the state, et cetera, so that we are fully stood up and we are fully our own identity, just like they changed their union identification number. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jung. One suggestion that I can't even remember now who presented it to me was, maybe it was when we were having a conversation, that we call it Northern Nevada Fire. That was one suggestion that was presented to me. So I don't know. You know, I think it's a good idea to rebrand, because the truth is we do provide service outside of the actual boundary of Truckee Meadows, if you will. So I think that's probably a good idea. Vice Chair Jung?
And even out of the state, because
Yeah.
we're helping California right now with our agreement. So there might be even something bigger that we would call it. And we have agreements with Story County, and we go all the way up to the state line and into California, way up there as well. So I think we're not going to fix the name today.
No.
If you just will take that as some feedback, and you know, and I think most importantly, the people that work for you have the buy-in more than us. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jung. Good job, Chief. Anything else?
Item B is the Commissioner's request for the dashboard. I received Commissioner Jung's comments. Things are progressing, but we're extraordinarily busy with a number of projects. So if they're on here, I haven't forgotten about them. We're moving them forward, albeit slowly.
Okay. Good. Okay, that's the end of the Chief's report. Any other questions, comments? I guess we will move to item 11 then, Chief.
Item 11 is discussion and direction to staff regarding the 2019 Nevada legislative session and other legislative issues proposed by legislators or by other entities permitted by the Nevada State Legislature to submit bill draft requests or such legislative issues as may be deemed by the chair or the board to be of critical significance to Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. Staff is tracking 88 Assembly bills and 89 Senate bills currently. We're just waiting to see how language evolves, and we'll probably have something for you, more substantive language come January and February,
Okay,
but nothing really specific to report at this time.
okay, good, thanks. So, do we, item 12?
Item 12 will not be necessary, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we will move to item 13, Commissioners and Fire Chiefs announcements.
I have no announcements in
Okay,
addition
you
to
have
what I
nothing
already
else, Chief?
expressed.
Does anybody have anything? Vice Chair Lucy? I mean,
Commissioner.
I just
work.
promoted him.
Yeah, I guess. Madam Chair, I do have a question. Chief, I have some concerns in regards to the Reindeer Lodge. I know CSD has been working on that, and that property has been red tagged by CSD. However,
It is, yeah.
that building is completely fire, and as we're talking today about fire prevention, and what we're doing to address some of those needs, I kind of want to figure out where are we at with, from a fire standpoint, because beams are exposed, there's lots of old tractors and equipment around there. What have we done to address fire prevention with that? Because that's right in heavy timber. And as we just heard, just because, you know, there is potential fires at all times, I want to see where we're at. So if you could follow up and make sure that you're working with CSD, and if Chief Beaver could take a look at that and put that down, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. And yes, Chief, I think that's a very valid point. If any place needs some fire protection work done on it, that one does. It's not just that the building has fallen down, but there's trash everywhere all around it, and it really needs to be cleaned. And I know it's private property. I also know it's up for sale for a couple of $1 million, but it's a 35-acre parcel or a 25-acre parcel that's up for sale. So I recognize that, but there's still, it's a danger, and it definitely needs some work done on it. So,
good.
thank you. Any other questions, comments? Chief? Yes.
Item 14 is,
We can't talk about Reindeer Lodge.
Oh, we can't talk about it? Okay, because it's not agendized. Okay, all right. So, anything else? Seeing nothing else, we will go to the final public comment. I see no one signed in, Madam Clerk. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take about a 10-minute break, so we will be back at 10:15.